will disappear very rapidly in the morning. Some thicker cloud again over the Western Isles of Scotland and over the Northern Isles. Maybe the odd shower here and there, potentially over Caithness, particularly through the afternoon. But most of Scotland, most of Northern Ireland, England and Wales having another blue sky day tomorrow. And yes, it will be the final day of April, seeing those temperatures lifting higher and higher. Probably the warmest day of the year so far, likely to get widely over 20 degrees Celsius. Well, we've got a bit more cloud across northern Scotland, temperatures maybe in the teens, but elsewhere, as I say, over 20 degrees, and in the south and southeast, 27, maybe 28 degrees Celsius. It'll be another warm one in the south on Thursday, but further north a change. A weather front moving in, bringing much more cloud, a little bit of light rain, maybe the odd heavy shower come the afternoon over the far south of Scotland, perhaps northern England. Small chance of a shower across central parts of England and Wales too, but here generally another very warm day, maybe peaking at 29 Celsius, but it will be turning cooler by Thursday across the north.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
On Thursday the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections,
mayoral elections and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
as the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, Donald Trump, messiah or maniac, as the US president reaches his 100th day in office, the day after Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney swept to victory following discontent over Donald Trump's suggestion that Canada could be the 51st state. We'll look back at 3 months coloured by tariffs, the Ukraine war and a migration crisis. Is it time our leaders followed suit? Migrant sex offenders are set to be stripped of refugee protections as the government finally seems, at least to be pretending, to clamp down on abuse of our asylum system. But is it all for show? Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman will join me live in the studio to discuss this. The nanny state is back, as Red Rachel reportedly plans to add milkshakes and milky coffee to the list of refreshments slapped with a sugar tax in a bid to tackle obesity. Is personal responsibility a thing of the past? And when England World Cup legend Nobby Stiles was diagnosed with dementia, along with 5 other members of the 1966 winning squad, doctors realised that repeated impact to the head from a football was responsible. Today, Nobby's son, John, joins me to discuss his campaign to raise awareness of dementia risks in sport. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most cantankerous panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster, Michael Crick. As ever, it's a crucial part of the programme. Let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the news with Katie Bowen.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. These are your latest headlines at 8:01. Some breaking news coming into us from Sweden this evening. Police say that 3 people have been killed and several have been injured in the city of Uppsala in an apparent shooting. Police are now searching for one suspected perpetrator, a news agency in Sweden is reporting. Police said that they were called after members of the public reported a noise that sounded like gunfire in the city centre. A large area has been cordoned off and investigations at the scene are ongoing. We'll bring you more on that breaking story as we get it. Elsewhere, Reform UK has committed to launching a national statutory public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal in its first month of government. Making the party's first legislative pledge, leader Nigel Farage says a national inquiry must happen. Labour peer Maurice Glassman has joined forces with Nigel Farage and a cross-party group to back the parliamentary bill that calls for a statutory inquiry. Lord Glassman said that the British public expect action so the police and other services finally get a grip of this disgrace. GB News also understands that many Labour MPs have given their support to the bill in principle. A 38-year-old man suspected of carrying out a crossbow attack in Leeds has died, counter-terrorism police have said. Owen Lawrence from Headingley was taken to hospital on Saturday with a self-inflicted wound after 2 women were injured on the Otley Road. Police have now confirmed that he has died in hospital. Police also confirmed that they are not looking for anyone else in connection with the attack. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair has called for the UK government to change course on climate policy, arguing that the plan to phase out or limit fossil fuels is doomed to fail. He also added that the current climate debate is riven with irrationality. Mr Blair said that Labour should focus less on renewables and more on solutions like carbon capture, adding that people were, quote, being asked to make financial sacrifices and changes in lifestyle when they know that their impact on global emissions is minimal. Writing in the foreword to a new report, Mr Blair went on to say that net zero is losing public support. Sticking with net zero, Downing Street has said that suggestions that a reliance on renewable energy contributed to blackouts in Spain and Portugal are unfounded claims and speculation. Power supplies have been returning in the 2 countries after large parts, including the capitals Madrid and Lisbon, were hit by a huge outage yesterday, affecting millions of people. Portugal's grid operator said extreme temperature variations had produced a rare atmospheric phenomenon that caused the cuts. And the Prince and Princess of Wales have arrived on the Isle of Mull as they celebrate their 14th wedding anniversary. William and Catherine, styled as the Duke and Duchess of Rothesay when in Scotland, are visiting the Isles of Mull and Iona to celebrate and connect with rural island communities. The pair were married 14 years ago today at Westminster Abbey. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Jacob in Westminster.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. Today, President Donald Trump celebrates 100 days of his second term in office after storming to victory in November's contest with Kamala Harris. The past 100 days have been punctuated with events that will go down in history, including mass deportation of illegal migrants.
Border immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was
Well, his stance on the Russian-Ukraine war has caused foreign policy ripples across the globe after an hideous confrontation with President Zelensky in the Oval Office, which we'll remember.
not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Well, the meeting in the Vatican seemed to go much better, but President Trump vowed to end the war in Ukraine in his first 24 hours in the White House. Evidently a hyperbolic statement, but nonetheless one that has failed to materialise in his first 2,400 hours. He then set in motion what his adversaries dubbed the trade war, imposing tariffs on countries all over the world, including us.
So, if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing.
He discovered in that press conference what a lovely word groceries is. Anyway, the move triggered panic in the markets not seen since the financial crash of 2008. Nevertheless, President Trump's economic agenda is, as everything he does is intended to deliver on his campaign promises and put America first. Now, not everything is going his way, and he's been resoundingly snubbed by the good-natured, kindly Canadians, where last night the leftist Liberal Party swept to victory, led by Mark Carney, following a nationwide backlash to Trump's 25% tariffs on some of the nation's main exports, and repeatedly suggesting that Canada could become the 51st state. The most important factor to consider when analysing any action by Donald Trump is that his focus is on making America great again, not any other country. He doesn't care about other countries. He governs in the perceived interest of his people, his voters, his nation. He shows no interest in ingratiating himself with the supranational governing bodies that so many Western leaders fall for. Indeed, our very own Reverend Starmer himself let slip his own pious preferences.
Let us just ask you quickly, you have to choose now between Davos or Westminster?
Davos.
Why?
Because Westminster is too constrained.
Now, can you imagine Trump preferring anything to America, ever preferring a foreign convention to his own country? And while every detail of what he's done is not necessarily what I would have chosen, he is indisputably doing it because he believes it's in US interests. He is putting the American people first, and he recognises that the United States has been taken advantage of by some foreign nations, especially China and the European Union. And we should learn from this. We ought to be governing for ourselves rather than trying to please bureaucratic pen pushers in the G7. Regrettably, Britain and the EU recently seem to be planning an anti-Trump declaration, which would be a dreadful mistake. Trump understands something that many Western leaders, many politicians do not. Splurging on luxuries such as foreign aid and international environmental projects doesn't align with the interests of the people. It's not about looking good, looking smart at the G7 summits. It's about serving the people at home. President Trump's approach has not been perfect, but his priorities are right. And I hope one day we will have a Prime Minister in this country who will put the United Kingdom first. As ever, let me know what you think. Email mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm very pleased now to be joined by political commentator Laurie Laird and my pugnacious panel, Kelvin McKenzie and Michael Crick. Laurie, let me come to you first. Donald Trump is a political phenomenon, isn't he? That in 100 days, he's issued over 500 executive orders, where the average each is 80. he's doing what he said he would do when he was campaigning.
Without a doubt, and it's been exhausting. I mean, are you exhausted by this? I follow trade for a living, and I have no idea what the trade picture is from one day to the next. I think one thing that's noteworthy, though, you mentioned those executive orders, and that's more than I think that we've seen since in 50 years. But is this the way America is meant to be governed? You know, he has completely bypassed Congress. His Republican Party, which has a majority in both of those houses, has essentially walked away and said, go for it. The Democrats have been equally quiet, concerningly quiet, for anybody who wants to see an effective opposition, whether you're a Democrat or not. I think we can all probably agree that an opposition is an important thing to have. I think the trade war has taken all the oxygen out of the room, but some of the things we're not talking about are concerning. Things like defanging Congress, things like the entire country no longer trusts the judiciary, no matter what side of the political divide they're on. I think the Republicans have to watch themselves. They're going to be out of office one of these days. And if they're in opposition, not having these checks and balances could be as concerning for the Republicans as it is for the Democrats now.
But isn't this often true of powerful and charismatic presidents, that when FDR came in, he had enormous power and, of course, a majority in Congress, used Congress more, but it was his force of personality that overrode the constitutional safeguards. And Trump is following in that tradition, that there is raw political power that sometimes overrides the safeguards, but the safeguards are always there in future. It doesn't last.
It's a reasonable parallel. It definitely is. But I think Trump has not yet disobeyed a court order, but he's come very, very close. And I think people are watching very closely to see whether that will happen. And I think this is new. I think completely avoiding Congress is again new. And I would argue that Trump's economic decisions are probably not going to make America great again. You mentioned in your monologue, very good monologue, but you mentioned that he is governing in the interest of the American people. I fail to see how this trade war...
I was very careful to say perceived interests, because I'm as against trade restrictions as you are.
And I know you know your economics, but it's difficult to argue that this is in America's interest, that higher prices, which are almost inevitable, will be in Americans' interests.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that one-way trade, free trade, makes you richer. But China and the EU had huge non-tariff barriers against the US and huge trade surpluses. So he had a point when he said he's being ripped off by these foreign countries.
There's no question that America tends to pay higher tariffs. It isn't a level playing field. I don't think that's debatable. I agree with you there. But I think to take it a step further, as Donald Trump has said, and say, you know, the Cambodians, you know, average income $2,000 a year, Cambodians are taking advantage of us, I think is a little bit of a stretch. And the other side of this is a lot of lower income Americans have benefited from some of these cheaper goods. So it's not completely one-sided here. There is a benefit to being able to get a cheaper car, cheaper clothing, cheaper electronics.
Well, let me bring the panel in. Michael, you're no fan of Donald Trump, but he has done something extraordinary. He told voters he'd do things. He's done them.
Well, no, he hasn't. He's not making America great again. He is making America despised.
He's stopped illegal migration.
Let me finish my sentence, Jacob. Friends of mine are saying they're not going to go on holiday in America. The Canadians hate America now. You've got very lefty friends. Yeah.
This is the most virtuous thing.
You only have to look at the trends in terms of the bookings, and people are ceasing to buy American goods. This isn't making America great again. It's making America a laughingstock for the first time in its history. America was the beacon of liberal values, free trade, respect for the rule of law, respect for parliamentary institutions, and so on. Instead of which, we have a crook, a maniac, one of the most stupid people ever to be President of the United States. Everybody lives in fear of him. They're all queuing up, as Trump, one of the very few things he said that was accurate, they're all queuing up to kiss his ass, including our own Prime Minister, who is now, according to the Times today, trying to lobby within government, this is appalling, is trying to lobby within government for Trump to get the Turnberry Golf course, for the Open Golf Tournament. In other words, he's lobbying for the private business interests of another foreign leader. A total derogation of standards, almost on Boris Johnsonian level.
All right, but Michael, can we avoid talking about donkeys? Because people don't like it this early, and I didn't know that you kept any in the White House to be kissed. Let me bring you in.
I was only quoting him.
Let me bring you in, Calvin. That he has done what he said he's done. He's got migration down, particularly illegal migration. He's delivering on his promises.
Right, well, this is where the issue is. Within the United States, I should imagine the fact that there are not tens of thousands of migrants crossing the border every day is a great plus for their lives. The downside is, and I was talking to a friend of mine who lives on the East Coast just before this show, he said he has a son and him, and their grocery bill was $200, and it was going up almost by the day. And so either the people supplying the food are ripping them off, or tariffs are having some effect. And if there are empty shelves or an inability to buy a car that they want to buy in America, or something happens to house prices, then this will be... I see that Starmer is now the most unpopular Prime Minister since the last unpopular Prime Minister. And that is nothing compared to what happens to Trump. So I think there's two ways of looking at this. Within the United States, I am told that the jury is still unbelievably out. Outside the United States, the jury has decided. But if anybody in Canada thinks that Mark Carney is the answer, they should see the time when he was Bank of England governor here, where he was known as never wrong for long.
I just want to bring Laurie in very briefly, because his opinion poll rating does seem to have gone down. He has a low approval rating compared to other presidents after 100 days. But he still has this dominance over Congress, and the courts aren't yet tackling him. So how does he have this political dominance when the polls are shifting against him?
Part of it is Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is willing to finance candidates that will support Trump in Congress. And we're hearing that Musk may step back a little bit. We wonder if there's a rift between these two men. These two guys need each other. Musk needs the regulatory goodies that may come from being friends with the president. The president needs Elon Musk to finance Trump-friendly candidates and billionaires in politics. This is why we have J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, who was an ex-colleague of Musk. They founded PayPal together. J.D. Vance was a nothing until Peter Thiel funded him, and Musk will continue to get these Trump-friendly candidates, into office. And I think a lot of Republicans are petrified that they will face a Musk-funded primary challenger. I don't see Congress standing up to the president anytime soon, despite, as you say, his approval ratings are falling.
All right. Well, thank you very much to my panel and to Laurie. Coming up next, migrant sex offenders are set to be stripped of refugee protections as the government finally pretends to be clamping down on abuse of our asylum system. But it is all show. The former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, joins me live in the studio to discuss these matters.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You two met, I mean, since we last saw each other, then you two have done Strictly. And, but the fact that and there's quite an age gap.
51 years.
51. And yet...
Granny.
Granny. But the fact you clearly get on really well, and you've stayed in touch, and you've developed a real friendship.
We really do. I mean, we live 5 minutes from each other. We speak most days, and, Angela had this amazing campaign with Let's Dance, and obviously I was very, very much supporting that. And when you just get on like a house on fire, we just do. We get each other. We have great banter. And like you said, there's 51 years between us, but we feel like we've known each other for 51 years.
You have a particular interest in getting dance back into schools, don't you? I mean, your own experience of this, because you're Your dad is a professional footballer, and you actually won a place, didn't you, into the football academy? It was sort of expected that you were going to be a footballer.
Yes, it was. I was expected to be a football player naturally because I was the eldest son, and you know Southampton wanted to sign me in the Premier League, and they still are. No, I chose to be a dancer, and it was because my dad and mum sent me to dance classes because I was very hyperactive as a kid. I was pretending to kick a football all the time. They sent me to my next door neighbour's dance school, and the class was called Tango Tots. I somehow ended up being a dancer and had to tell my Geordie dad when I was 12 years old that I wanted to be a dancer.
How did that go down?
It went fine. It's not like the film, not like the film, but it's very, 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 very supportive. And obviously, the brother ended up being the football.
But you're very keen to get dance back into schools, aren't you? Tell me why.
I'm so keen because for kids that can't afford it, why not just give them the opportunity to learn to dance? We live in a world today where we're on the phones, we're on TikTok. Kids are learning to dance anyway, so why not regulate it and let them learn it in school for free?
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is still So the Nation. So Labour has unveiled plans to make it easier to deport and deny asylum to foreign nationals convicted of sexual offences. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said, "We are restoring order to a broken asylum system that has been mired in delay and dysfunction for far too long, and we are strengthening our system to make sure that the rules are respected and enforced. Sex offenders who pose a risk to the community should not be allowed to benefit from refugee protections in the UK. We are strengthening the law to ensure these appalling crimes are taken seriously." Under the current law, only those jailed for over a year can be deported under the Refugee Convention. Labour wants to expand this to include anyone on the sex offenders register or considered a threat to public safety. However, offenders will still have the ability to make claims under the ECHR. Is this finally a step in the right direction, or is it too little, too late? Well, joining me now is someone who knows a great deal about this subject and is a friend of the programme, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Suella, first of all, thank you very much for coming in. This is good news, isn't it? We're going to get rid of sex offenders. They're not going to have Refugee Convention rights. And if they've committed any sex crime, even if it's under a year sentence, they'll be on the plane.
Superficially, it's very good news. But I know you can't fool GB News viewers very easily. And I don't think they'll be fooled by what we've heard from Yvette Cooper today. Because, frankly, first of all, it's no coincidence that this announcement has been made a couple of days before the local elections, where Labour are struggling to maintain their support. And secondly, frankly, it's not worth the paper it's written on. If claimants and the foreign criminals are still able to bring human rights claims or claim protection under the European Convention of Human Rights, it will mean nothing whatsoever.
Will it mean something, though, that not everybody will be able to bring a human rights claim? There will be some cases that are really very clear that people have come here, they've committed a sexual offence, they'll be out pretty quickly, particularly bogus asylum seekers can be removed quickly and efficiently if they are sex offenders. And not all of them will be able to claim some family background or whatever it is that gives them human rights protections.
The problem with that hope is that the human rights laws are so expansive, so accessible. Foreign criminals can get a lawyer paid for by the taxpayer on legal aid, and they can put in claim after claim and appeal after appeal based on all sorts of different and often fabricated claims related to human rights. And so even if there's going to be a limitation on some of their claims here or there, fundamentally, no judge is going to disallow a foreign criminal from relying on Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, the right against torture, inhumane or degrading treatment, which has been distorted beyond all recognition
OK, because you as Home Secretary would not have wanted to send people back to be tortured, would you, or to have degrading treatment. So that then becomes a balance of whether you think the level of risk is high enough to allow somebody who's committed an offence to stay. And who ultimately should decide that? Should it be the courts? Is it essentially a legal matter, or is it essentially a political matter?
Listen, ministers should have the power to make a decision, or those acting on behalf of ministers. But the problem is with Article 3 and the protection against torture is that it's now been stretched so much. So, for example, we were not able to deport a Jamaican rapist back to Jamaica, convicted in this country and duly tried, because he suddenly discovered that he was bisexual, despite the fact that his victims were female. And if we were to have deported him to Jamaica, he said that that would be degrading treatment and torture. There's a case that really people should be reminded of. Fabian Henry was a convicted sex offender, quite serious offences of a child. And the last government tried to deport him back to Jamaica. We weren't able to because of campaigning Labour MPs who said it would be a violation of his human rights. Who was one of those campaigning Labour MPs who signed a letter? Keir Starmer. So not only is this an unrealistic plan which won't survive contact with reality, which is our human rights laws, but the hypocrisy of the government, namely Keir Starmer, who has previously campaigned to stop the deportation of foreign criminals, is staggering.
Yvette Cooper's other point is that it's basically our fault, that we were in for 14 years, she inherited a broken system and is trying to do something that may improve it. You're saying at the margins she thinks fundamentally. You think that's fair, don't you? Because that's part of the reason you left the government, is you thought we simply weren't doing enough. So her criticism of us, you would broadly accept.
Listen, I have to accept that as a Conservative government, we failed to stop the boats. We failed to clamp down on illegal migration sufficiently. We didn't do what was necessary because there was a lack of political will. We should have left the European Convention of Human Rights when we had the majority to do so. We should have scrapped the Human Rights Act when we had the majority to do so. That we didn't when we had the opportunity is a source of regret.
And do you think there is any way of stopping illegal migration and removal of sex offenders short of leaving the ECHR? Could you do it by derogation from certain aspects, or is it necessary to leave the whole thing? Because Denmark seems to have done very well in restricting migration, and it remains subject both to the European Charter of Fundamental Rights and to the ECHR.
Well, I think we have a particular context here in the UK. We have not only the ECHR and the politicised interventionist Strasbourg Court, which we saw in action when we were trying to get the flights off to Rwanda, and they grounded them at the 11th hour. But we also have the Human Rights Act, which exacerbates the problem. So we've domesticated it. We also have an activist legal profession and an activist judiciary to a degree, where we've seen constant cases of, frankly, left-wing immigration judges making ludicrous judgments on immigration claims. So we don't have a system. Taking all those factors together, we are not like just any other European country. We have a particular set of exacerbating factors. I do believe that derogation won't work because the legal test for derogation is extremely high. Tony Blair couldn't even derogate from the European Convention of Human Rights in the aftermath of 9/11 when he wanted to enact security measures to tackle Islamist terrorists in the UK. If that wasn't even sufficient to derogate from the ECHR, and I would have said that would have been a crisis time, national security issues, we won't be able to justify derogation on the legal basis as it stands in the ECHR.
So all the announcement by politicians, whether they're Tory or Labour, will be mere window dressing unless they make that fundamental choice, repeal the Human Rights Act, leave the European Convention.
Yes, as long as we are still within the orbit of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, we are subject to their case law. We are subjected to their judges and their judgments, and we don't have proper sovereignty over our laws and in particular over our borders.
Suella, thank you very much for coming in. The nanny state is back. I hope, Nanny, you're watching. Red Rachel reportedly plans another attack on dairy farmers with milkshakes and milky coffee added to the list of refreshments slapped with a sugar tax in a bid to tackle obesity. Is personal responsibility a thing of the past?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Whilst it's sunny and warm in the UK, it's very windy in Greece at the moment. It stays windy on Wednesday, showers in Cyprus and also a spell of rain moving through Portugal heading into Spain. That's going to be fairly heavy with gusty winds. Dry ahead of it for Barcelona and for Italy. A pleasant day to come on Wednesday, but we keep the strong winds through the Greek islands and this area of showers and thunderstorms moving into Cyprus. It all settles down much more later this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Well, welcome back. We were talking about refugees and the mail mogs have come in. Trevor says, Suella is totally correct. Lefty lawyers would just appeal to the ECHR and Labour knows it. This is just a vote catcher to those stupid enough to believe it. Trevor, I think you're spot on. And a GB News viewer says, how is the government going to return foreign nationals to countries where the UK doesn't have a returns agreement? Well, bingo, Mr. or Mrs. GB News viewer, I suppose possibly Ms. So, Rachel Reeves is set to slap a tax on milkshakes as part of a sugar levy expansion aimed at tackling obesity. The move targets milk and yoghurt-based drinks, once spared over concerns about children's calcium intake, but now labelled a public health risk. Prices could rise by up to 14p per pint, with 93% of products affected unless recipes change. Despite the original levy failing to cut sugar consumption, ministers are once again looking to increase taxes and hit farmers, pushing a nanny state agenda that hits consumers with yet more taxes, all under the pretence of promoting health. Well, my panel are with me, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick, and we've got some health-refreshing, health-giving milkshakes to test. So, Kelvin, you are having a vanilla milkshake. Do you think this is harming the inner Kelvin?
No, it is not damaging me. In fact, I enjoy it. And the bottom line on this is that obesity has actually got worse with the arrival of the sugar tax. But I can understand why they're doing it. And what will happen is, thanks to rather clever business people, we will still get the same taste and there'll be less sugar in there and obesity will rise even higher. The reality is that parents are not controlling what their children eat because they think by feeding them in food pouches that they, in fact, they're doing them good. They're not doing them any good. And as we've become wealthier, we have become more sweet-toothed, and they think that the answer to the kids is giving more sweets. Look, it's down to parents. It's down to children. Actually, funnily enough, with the new drugs out there today, there is a chance that actually obesity will decline. It will be due to drugs, and it won't be due to a ridiculous tax like this.
But would you actually trust governments? Because in the 1970s, they started saying, don't eat butter, don't eat cream. And manufacturers listened to that. They went for low fat, and they put more sugar in, and people got fatter and fatter. It turns out, as I understand it, the natural fats are really quite good for you. Your body processes them well. And governments just lie.
Yeah, so you can have Greek yoghurt, which I enjoy, and you can have low-fat Greek yoghurt. Actually, the pure Greek yoghurt does you quite a lot of good. There is nothing in this, in the low-fat. There is a load of madness out there. Actually, it's down to the individual. Control what you're eating, control what you're drinking. Then you can have a very happy life. And by the way, absolutely lovely that. Delighted.
And Michael, you are having a banana milkshake. I think bananas are the most loathsome fruit. I don't think anyone should ever have a banana. I can't bear the smell of them. Nonetheless,
they smell lovely and they taste, they're absolutely delicious.
Revolting. But can't people decide for themselves? I mean, I probably haven't had a milkshake in about 10 years, and this is delicious. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
They need to be nudged with taxes, and I don't know. I mean, Kelvin says that these taxes are not effective. I'm not sure on what basis he says that. On the other hand, I don't have the counter evidence to hand. But put taxes on them, and that will then help pay for the appalling costs of obesity on the health service. I mean, obesity is crippling the health service. If we could at least keep people's rates of obesity at a level, then it would help. It's going up and up and up.
This is a bit like the argument on smoking, where the government used to make a huge profit on smoking, got much more in tax than it paid, and it uses it both to lecture people and to get more tax out of them. Never trust a government that says we're getting more tax out of you for your health. It's like when they say we're putting tax on petrol for environmental reasons. No, they're not. They're putting tax on things so they can squander it on overseas aid and their other hobby horses.
There are dishonesties in this, I will admit, from time to time. But it seems to me that if you are a chancellor, you've got to think of all the possible taxes you can. And this seems to be a rather good one. It may not pay for all the extra costs of the health service of obesity, may only pay for a very tiny bit of it, but it will help.
But, Michael, you're dangerously honest. It's so refreshing to have you on, because you're actually admitting the government's going to add this tax because it needs more tax. It's not really to do with obesity. It's just this is an easy target, and they can take the moral high ground, which governments like doing.
Well, you believe in free markets, and so do I, and so does Kelvin. And if the price goes up, people tend to buy less of something. And if that thing is bad for them, then they will have less. They will be.
The truth about the matter is that business, as they did before, lowered the amount, by actually coming up with clever ways that were like sugar tasting but weren't sugar. That will continue to happen. So actually...
And if that's healthy, if the replacement is healthy, then
but
good.
doesn't
what
make
it
any
won't
difference to
do-
obesity, or hasn't in the figures.
Well, it might. In some cases, it might do. Other cases, it may not.
Isn't this another attack on the farmers, on the dairy farmers, many of whom are in Somerset? So I have particular
Well, the way you were
concern for
talking
them.
earlier, you made it sound like a deliberate attack on the farmers.
Well, it is because if you have black coffee, which is what I happen to drink, then it's not going to have this
you're
extra
attacking
toss.
Somerset farmers
No,
now.
I make up for it with plenty of cream on strawberries and things like that, and butter and all sorts of cheese and so on. But if you have black coffee, there's no extra tax. And if you put a bit of sugar in, which you pick up in the shop, there's no extra tax. But if you have a milky coffee... then you're taxed.
And by the way, have you seen the price of a latte right now? Decaffeinated latte in Pretz, £3.80. £3.80. I used to remember when it was about £2.20. That is now going to go through £4. These are unbelievable amounts of money, and it may have the effect of actually shutting down coffee shops, which you may feel is not a bad thing anyway. I don't know. But it will have an effect. But, however, I'm relying on business to come up with clever ideas to make sugar tasting without being sugar. That's what they've done before.
If I was running a business, particularly a big business, I would be rather concerned about the number of my staff who are ill all the time because they're fat and in hospital and not coming into work. And this will help businesses in that way as well. We can't, there are so many different dimensions.
I'm not dropping a tear for the obese.
We're going to move on from these delicious milkshakes. The only problem with this milkshake is the paper straw. Let's model ourselves on Trump and go back to nice plastic straws. But now we're upping our game, because we're going to raise a glass of champagne. Because, according to a new study, a higher take of champagne, alongside fruit consumption, if you're desperate, a sunny disposition, which my most pugnacious panel has, a trim waistline, appears to reduce the risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Tommy Trinder worked this out years ago.
Champagne Charlie is my name. Champagne drinking is my game. There's no drink as good as fizz, fizz, fizz. I'll drink every drop there is.
Go on, you've got to do it again for the
Charlie
listeners.
is my name, champagne drinking is my game, with the fizz, fizz, fizz. But before you start ordering cases of Bollinger in bulk, do note this is an association, not an endorsement. The scientists stopped short of prescribing Moe as medicine, or Moet as I should probably pronounce it. Regular champagne and white wine drinkers saw a 30% lower risk of cardiac arrest. Quite literally, the heart responds well to a bit of a fizz. Well, a toast to my most pugnacious panel. I hope you enjoy your champagne. The finest Bollinger all round. And cheers to my wonderful viewers, because I'm going to be back in a moment talking about when England World Cup legend Nobby Stiles was diagnosed with dementia, one of 6 from the 1966 squad. Doctors linked it to repeated head impacts. Today, his son, John, will join me to discuss his campaign to raise awareness of dementia in sport and to demand accountability. So quite a change of topic from champagne.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Been a cracking day today, if you like, sunny weather in spring. And, well, guess what? There's more to come tomorrow. If anything, slightly warmer, all thanks to this chunky area of high pressure dominating our weather, allowing the sun to do its thing and warm things up day by day. There is a weak weather front across the far north of Scotland. It's not been sunny here all day. Quite a bit of cloud, and that cloud thick enough for a little bit of drizzly rain to return to Shetland through the early hours. But elsewhere, it's a dry night, maybe a little misty. Temperatures dipping away in the east, turning quite cool here down to single figures. But further west, a very warm night, actually, particularly parts of Western and North Wales, where we may see temperatures holding in the mid-teens. Pretty unusual for the end of April. There's a bit of a breeze which will continue to blow along the south coast, New Hampshire down to Cornwall, but otherwise the winds are pretty light. Any mist and fog will disappear very rapidly in the morning. Some thicker cloud again over the Western Isles of Scotland and over the Northern Isles. Maybe the odd shower here and there, potentially over Caithness, particularly through the afternoon. But most of Scotland, most of Northern Ireland, England and Wales having another blue sky day tomorrow. And yes, it will be the final day of April. seeing those temperatures lifting higher and higher, probably the warmest day of the year so far, likely to get widely over 20 degrees Celsius. Well, we've got a bit more cloud across northern Scotland, temperatures maybe in the teens, but elsewhere, as I say, over 20 degrees, and in the south and southeast, 27. Maybe 28 degrees Celsius. It'll be another warm one in the south on Thursday, but further north a change. A weather front moving in, bringing much more cloud, a little bit of light rain, maybe the odd heavy shower come the afternoon over the far south of Scotland, perhaps northern England. Small chance of a shower across central parts of England and Wales too, but here generally another very warm day, maybe peaking at 29 Celsius, but it will be turning cooler by Thursday across the north.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Earlier this evening in Parliament, voices from across football, families, former players, campaigners, the mayors of Greater Manchester and Liverpool, came together to campaign for football families for justice. They're raising awareness and pushing for justice for the countless footballers left with neurodegenerative diseases, including dementia, caused by repeated impact of footballs to the head. As the Football Governance Bill enters the House of Commons, the son of one such footballer who suffered this fate, along with 5 of his winning teammates, the late Great England 1966 legend Nobby Stiles, is leading the campaign for accountability from football authorities. So joining me now is the former professional footballer and campaigner John Stiles, and Michael Crick has stayed with us. John, first of all, thank you very much for coming in. Your father is one of the best-known footballers in history. I know very little about football, but I know of your father.
Yeah.
And it's extraordinary that so many from that 1966 team ended up getting neurodegenerative diseases from the football and heading the football and their head injuries that they got from that.
Yeah, it's not actually rocket science, Jacob. Basically, when my father was ill, he was told he had vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. And I was told by somebody that it's probably this disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. So very simply, the ball hits the head, there's an impact, and a tiny protein called tau breaks off. Now, if you don't have another impact, it settles down. But the footballers had tens of thousands of footballs. Over the years, the tau protein gathers into a clump, settles on the brain, and destroys it. And when we donated my dad's brain, no vascular dementia or Alzheimer's, completely riddled with CTE.
And when did they first know about this and about the risks of heading a football? Is it something that the authorities have been aware of for some years and have done nothing about, or is this relatively new science?
Well, the disease, CTE, was discovered in 2003 by Bennett and Marlowe in America, so they've known about it since then. There's been things written for years and years, but it's just so obvious now. I mean, for my dad's age at 75, it should have been 1 in 44. My stats are all from Professor Willie Stewart in Glasgow, who's the expert in the world. It's 50%. It's not rocket science.
No, it's really straightforward. Also, it's common sense, isn't it, that if you keep on having something bash against your head, you are likely to do yourself some long-term damage. And how are the authorities responding? What is the FA saying? Is it looking into this? Is it setting up a fund to compensate people, help them with their care? Is it thinking of reviewing the rules of football?
If you take it as a whole, they're doing virtually nothing. And Chris Sutton, who was there today, he addressed the DCMS 4 years ago and basically said, this is a scandal, this is telling. In 4 years' time. So what's happened is the PFA and the Premier League have set up a fund to help, a brain health fund.
and it's £1 million. Well, my dad's care was £125,000 a year. This £1 million is a joke. It's a farce. So we want a proper fund, properly financed fund, so that somebody, an ex-player like myself or others, they know if they have to go into a care home, those costs are going to be taken care of. And football's got the money to do it. The taxpayer shouldn't be responsible for this. Football should own this. And they know what's going on, but they won't deal with it.
And you had the event in Parliament today. How much support are you getting, and who are the people who are backing your campaign?
We've got so many players behind us. Today was just a cross-section. So today we had Jeff Hurst, Kevin Keegan, David May, Chris Sutton, loads of blasts from the past, if you like, and they're all supporting us. David Beckham supporting us, and the Charlton family, Bobby Charlton's family. We've got that much support. It's ridiculous. But today was interesting because when we were in there, the MPs came in. And so yesterday, 6 MPs spoke in the House about what the Football Families for Justice was doing. And about another 10 or 12 came in today. And the theme was the stuff that they've been told by the Premier League and the PFA, that everything's OK and all the families are getting the help. They now know that's not true. They know the truth.
And do you think the rules of football should be changed to say that you can't head the ball, or would that take something out of the game?
That isn't what we're after, Jacob. Football is a spectacular sport people love, and we're not saying that we should ban heading. It's the training that's doing the damage. It's the repetition, tens of thousands of balls, heading up football. But we do want everybody to be aware of the risks, and they're not. I went to watch my grandson play a couple of weeks ago. This kid's heading the ball. We want everybody to be aware of this disease.
Michael, let me bring you in, because you're helping with this campaign.
Well, in a very small way, yeah.
But you know, you're giving them your advice. Football's got lots of money.
Exactly.
Surely it can do something to help.
Lots of people made that point at the meeting tonight. I mean, the other day, a figure was published that football agents, people who arrange transfers and contracts, had received £500 million in payments in the last year. And as John says, the fund for helping players and families with dementia is just £1 million. I mean, the football is... The upper levels of football now are just awash with money. There's loads of money there. It's not they're asking for help from the taxpayer. What they're asking from the taxpayer, and what John's campaign is asking for, is amendments to the Football Governance Bill that will place a legal responsibility on the football authorities to accept responsibility for this and to do something about it.
And because the figures are extraordinary,
yes.
that rather than 1 in 44, much higher numbers are getting dementias, and there's no support for them beyond the ordinary state support if you have dementia.
No, and you know that care home costs are extraordinary, and clubs are not helping out very much, I mean, John knows more about this than me. The other thing, a point I think is worth making, a lot of people say, but in the old days when Nobby Stiles was playing and Bobby Charlton and so on, balls were a lot heavier because they took in a lot of water. And that's true, but a point that John, I hadn't realised till John made it to me, is that these days, because balls remain lighter, they travel much faster. So the impact scientifically is that of a light ball going at speed and a heavy ball going more slowly is about the same.
It's about the same.
Is that right? I've got that right, John?
It's absolutely true. They did studies at Stirling University. If I can sum it up quickly, Jacob, my dad's care costs were £125,000 a year, and he was in a home for 4 years. That's £500,000. Now, if my dad hadn't had some medals to sell, I don't know what we would have done.
But you had to sell.
Well, he'd already done it, but unless we'd have been in that position, and families ring me up every week and they say, if he goes into a care home, we don't know what we're going to do. And the fund that they've put in place is pitiful, and it's an insult.
John, thank you so much for coming in, and Michael, thank you for staying with me. Next, Patrick Christie's, you're devoting your whole programme to the Somerset weather, I hear, this evening.
Well, in a way, Jacob, I am going to be talking about the fact that Reform joined forces with the Labour peer today to put pressure on Jess Phillips for a national grooming gang inquiry. Got a bombshell interview with Tory MP Katie Lamb, who frankly says that Jess Phillips is letting down young girls in Britain. I'm also talking to Trump's counter-terror advisor Sebastian Gorka, 100 100 days in charge for the president. Is Britain on the brink of a meltdown? Look at what's going on across Europe at the moment with their electricity. And should male doctors be allowed to examine female patients' breasts? All of that after the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Been a cracking day today, if you like sunny weather in spring. And, well, guess what? There's more to come tomorrow. If anything, slightly warmer, all thanks to this chunky area of high pressure dominating our weather, allowing the sun to do its thing and warm things up day by day. There is a weak weather front across the far north of Scotland. It's not been sunny here all day. Quite a bit of cloud, and that cloud thick enough for a little bit of drizzly rain to return to Shetland through the early hours. But elsewhere, it's a dry night, maybe a little misty. Temperatures dipping away in the east, turning quite cool here down to single figures. But further west, a very warm night actually, particularly parts of Western and North Wales, where we may see temperatures holding in the mid-teens. Pretty unusual for the end of April. There's a bit of a breeze which will continue to blow along the south coast, New Hampshire down to Cornwall, but otherwise the winds are pretty light. Any mist and fog will disappear very rapidly in the morning. Some thicker cloud again over the Western Isles of Scotland and over the Northern Isles. Maybe the odd shower here and there, potentially over Caithness, particularly through the afternoon. But most of Scotland, most of Northern Ireland, England and Wales having another blue sky day tomorrow. And yes, it will be the final day of April, seeing those temperatures lifting higher and higher, probably the warmest